What is going on, guys? Happy Monday. We're about to dive into a bunch of stocks here in tonight's live stream. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in. What we're going to do is we're going to be talking about futures. We're going to be talking about what happened today and what to watch going forward. This has actually been a lot of really decent price action, I have to say, across a lot of stocks as of late. We can look at today's gainers. We'll look at a bunch of different things. We'll get some bigger charts. We'll dive into quite a few things here in this video. So I want to make it somewhat short, I guess like an hour-ish, so someone who wants to come in after the fact can at least get in and get out with a bunch of good, ideas for what's going on right now. But at the end of the day, we want to go over what happened. So I want to go into futures. I want to pull up investing.com futures just to get a sense as to what things are looking like. Slightly up, at least, going into tomorrow. As of right now, okay, not bad. But we had a pretty good day across the overall market. Let's take a look at SPY. I'll go to the larger chart here. So I'll pull up SPY, SPY. How did SPY do today? Well, we got back over 420 briefly, and then we pulled back on SPY. So let me actually fix my candlesticks here. Oh, they're hollow candles. We're good. We're good. We're on the 1 day, 1 minute chart. I usually look at like the daily chart. Let's pull that up. Let's broaden things out. And so here's our little setup we got going on SPY right now. I'm gonna get rid of this line because we don't really need that right now. But yeah, we kind of bounced back down, under 410 a couple times and have come right back up over 410, hitting 420 today, bouncing back, finishing the day just under 420. So we still got some room back up to get back to that trend line. So yeah, could we see some more upside? Sure. Could we also see a nice pullback? Yeah. I've been seeing some people talking like, yeah, we need to pull back down to like 380. I mean, if you do the math on it, if you think about the math on that, could we see it? Yeah, but where would that put you? We don't want to look at the area chart. We want to go back to the indicators or the drawings. Want to go back to this, from where we are right now to 380 on SPY. It's like a 9% dip. It's more than a dip. I'm sure people would be like, everything's crashing, burning, and everything's going to be ending. But that's everyone will be feeling at the time. But yeah, we got a lot of rebounds in a lot of names. I think we're seeing a lot of growth, a lot of high growth, kind of bottoming out and kind of rebounding. Neo, specifically one of those that kind of had that $35 support, said, yeah, we're going to pull right below it. And then guess what? Right back above 35 right now. So Neo broke out of this little downtrend range, recovering very nicely. Had a nice day, up 5%, up just about 1% in the after hours. So it's looking like it's set up for another push tomorrow. We'll see how this plays out. But if things stay generally green, I wouldn't be surprised if Neo pushes back on up. But I also do want to mention Tesla with all Elon Musk and everything. Tesla's bouncing very nicely in this range. We have this area right here that we're seeing Tesla bouncing beautifully down from like 550 to about $600. Seems to be a good accumulation zone for a move potentially back up to, 750 plus would be the first target I would have, at least on Tesla, with a stop loss or a mental stop loss. If you're looking for just a trade, obviously I have Tesla long that I'll just buy dips on and I'm not going to worry about. But if you're looking for a trade idea, up to that 775 or that area will be an area where we'll see some resistance, and we'll see if we can break back through that at some point for a further move on up. But seems like a pretty nice accumulation zone for Tesla if you're looking for something like that. But that is that. Let's take a look. I know Rblx has been an interesting one. I haven't looked at this one yet, but I've been seeing some talk on social media. I've been noticing some chatter. Look at this, blew up today. Past couple days actually, out of this kind of consolidation range. This has actually been a nice one to watch. If you look at the range, roughly speaking, here's your range. You've been roughly in this range from like 78 down to like 65, and you finally broke out to the upside, back up over 80, and now 89, hitting up over 89 here today. We'll see if we get $100. This is probably $100+ stock at some point, I think, from what I've seen. So we'll see if we get $100 relatively soon. At this pace, it could happen sooner rather than later. This is also, I want to say, it's not a low flow, right? But if we look at FinViz, what are we looking for in Roblox? Let's pull it up. Sorry, I gotta zoom in. We have a 442 million flow. It's not terrible. I mean, that's movable. With enough volume, that's movable. Recently, we've been seeing volume of 31 million. So it's not like crazy volume relative to the float, but it's getting up there though. Relatively speaking, we've seen an increase in volume for sure as of late. And a great example, to be honest, of like volume preceding price. If you look at this, look at the daily chart on this thing. Look at this thing. Okay, post earnings report, right? On the 10th, we see a big influx in volume. Now, okay, yes, we go from $65 up to 77 in 1 day. That's this big green candle here on the 11th, okay? So let me get rid of this. So yes, great. But then the next couple of days, the volume stays relatively high. It doesn't go right back to what we saw, the prior 2 weeks. It stays relatively high, and we just see some chop. So we don't get much price action movement. What we do, but we're kind of in a range, like a $5 range, from like $70 to like 64, or from like 75, 76 down to like 70-ish is our range. And then eventually, boom, blasting volume takes to the upside. So when you see volume staying elevated or elevating, and the price action is not really moving very much relative to what we've been seeing as of late based on prior volume, that's usually a good indicator of a pretty strong move coming in and usually to the upside, generally, right? If you see that, especially depending on the stock, or if you're seeing selling pressure, usually you kind of see if this was kind of pushing to the downside here, yeah, it could be the opposite way around for sure. My orders are canceling now because people, it's just after 8 p.m. Eastern, so all my orders that I had for the day, not good till canceled, all just canceled. That's fun. But across at least what I was in today, we had a lot of good price action. I noticed a lot of good stuff. Some of the stuff I'll mention a couple of things that I took really quick. One of my biggest ones was BTX, because BTX got like $20 million in funding or financing news. This could be a good play potentially further, but BTX pushes on up here. I'll look at the 1 minute chart on BTX. Prior, low float runner. This thing ran up to like $80+ a while back. It gets the news. I actually missed it, but I saw it early enough that I was able to get in at a 1480 average. So I was actually able to get in the second minute it came out. Like I missed like right on that first minute of it coming out, but I actually was just paying attention, and I got in at 1480. And then I wrote it up. I took some profits at like 15.50 and 16 for like half my shares. And then what I did is I put a trailing stop loss on, and I moved my trailing stop up. I moved my stop up. I didn't put it, not a trailing, it was just a stop. I moved it up, and I eventually put it here. I was like, okay, I was noticing these candles right here at like, this is like 3:15 p.m. Eastern time. So we noticed that we had this consolidation. We generally were holding up over 1650. So I put my stop loss at like 1640 something, and eventually it hit and it pushed back to the upside. But it is what it is. It's fine. My average was so much lower, so I was fine just making sure I locked in the gains at that point. I could have made an extra $1 or $2, on my shares. But it is what it is. That was my biggest, probably one of my biggest wins today, for sure. And then ANVS was another one that I actually traded short. Accidentally at first, but then I actually averaged in. I liked it from like that $70 area. Why 70? Well, if you look back to the left, look at this. This is what I liked a lot on ANVS. So it was a runner from last week. I didn't trade anything on Friday, so I didn't pay attention to it. But look at this. You have this area right here where we had some consolidation back last Friday from like 70 to like 75. And then it happened again here. We held support here roughly at like $70. And then eventually it fell through, okay? So when you have a prior area of support, that's going to become resistance. And guess what we saw in the pre-market hours? We got close, resistance. You got up there, resistance. So I ended up averaging in. I didn't have a great average on it. I think I started with an average like 65. I got up maybe like 66, 67 bucks. But I ended up covering that at like 60. And then I left a few for like 57, which was a nice trade as well. That was it. So those were the two. They had an offering at $50 as well. So those are like my two biggest plays. And then JagX, I played a little bit as well. I got a little bit of a pop. And then PTPI. I've actually been liking these plays. Nothing crazy, but it's been a fun way to kind of make a few bucks. So what I'll notice is at the last few minutes of the day, the past couple, and I made a video called, I think it was called The Dirty Side of the Stock Market. And it was where you see what happens here is you get a pump, right? And what I mean by a pump is that all of a sudden somebody the last minute they jam it, right? So the last minute of the market being open, they jammed this thing with like 100,000 shares, 150,000 shares, right? They smash it market buy. The thing ended up, being up barely on the day, but because of this last candle right here before the market closed, the stock ended up finishing up 37.92%. So you jam it with volume, and then the after hours, sometimes you can get a really big push to the upside if there's enough people, it hits the scanners and everyone's like, oh, what is this? It's a low float, small market cap rate, but there was no news. So I ended up grabbing shorts at like $4 and then like $3.95 because I noticed it, and I've played a couple of these in the past. Now, nothing crazy size-wise in case they squeeze it or they run it up, but I felt fairly confident this thing is going to come back to like 350 or lower, and that's what we got. I ended up covering it like 350, which ended up finishing the after hours at like 328. So pretty much like $1 plus move from the highs down back to where it finished up, because it was a pure pump. So I've been noticing that some of those, if you can grab, if you're paying attention or you're there, to short it at the beginning of the end of the after hours or the beginning of the after hours, there's usually a few bucks to be made there. So that was what I did personally on some of those. This wasn't able to trade today. This week is certainly, it's starting off pretty good, I think, across the board. For sure. Let's see. FSLY is one that I've looked at quite a bit. Let's take a peek at it. FSLY, let's look at the daily on it. Fastly is when we looked back a while back when it was trying to hold up like $75. It fell below, came back up, and now it's trying to bottom out here, which seems like it could be a good spot if we do this little rectangle right here, roughly. Yeah, it's not a bad spot. It was a prior area of kind of consolidation. Try to find that higher low right there, and you got a gap up here to like $57. So it's not a bad idea. I don't think down here. Not bad by any means. Let's look at some of the top gainers in the after hour really quick. USWS. I can pull up the news really quick on this guy too. We can go to Seeking Alpha. They had some news in the after hours on USWS. Let me pull this up. Let me zoom in. So US Well Services announces move towards full electrification of portfolio. That was the news here in the after hours. And they, let's see, definitive agreement to sell certain diesel-powered hydraulic fracturing equipment to a privately held buyer for proceeds of $21 million. In total, the company believes it should generate in excess of $100 million of cash from a non-core asset. That's interesting. That's actually pretty interesting. If we look at USWS's market cap, let's take a look at that. So this one can be going for tomorrow. They are an 88 million market cap. Not a super low float, but it does move. 61 million float, so it's a slower mover, but it can move. And so let's see, we got up to 130 in the after. This could probably be a gap up. It might gap up to like 150 and then potentially pull back from there, and we'll see how it goes into tomorrow. If the volume really pours in the pre-market, it may run, but we'll have to see. This is one that was, I've played in the past. It was a pretty big winner. I mean, actually, yeah, this was last year, June. Yeah, it was June. So when oil made a crazy run, this kind of had the ties to the oil sector. And so I had it from like under 50 cents and the thing went to over $1. It was 100% play. I had so many oil plays back then, it just went nuts. But yeah, this one looks like it could go. Actually, yeah, this could certainly go. But what's the pattern we've been noticing? The 200 SMA bounce right here. 200 SMA on the daily, it's been solid. It's been a good bounce for sure. DPW also had earnings, I believe, as well in the after hours. So DPW is one that's bottoming out. This is one that's like, hey, I'll wait for this thing to kind of really, really bottom out, and then it's a cult stock. But it is what it is, and it pushed on up, and it held up pretty well over a VWAP at like this 270 area. So it's up at 275 in the after hours. So that one also pushed up in the after hours. And then what else is there? RVP, not much volume there. JYNT, not much action there. SRK pushed up. So after that, there's kind of like less volume plays that we're looking at. But I think some interesting plays to watch. Sino pushing up a little bit, very low volume, but Sino is one. If we have to take a look at Bitcoin, because Bitcoin has been coming back. Elon Musk talking about, working with different people across, figuring out how we can get this mining stuff to be more, I guess, sustainable in terms of how they mine crypto. Bitcoin coming down off of, crazy low levels. We're relatively speaking right down to about 30K, just under 30K, dip for a very brief period of time. Back up to 39,000 right now. So it's bouncing quite well, holding a nice little trend line if we can look. Yeah, it's a pretty nice trend line, actually, if you draw this trend line. Yeah, it's roughly holding that trend line pretty well. So as long as it holds like 38K now, it should continue that move up to possibly 40 plus now. So we'll see how that plays out. But Bitcoin is this will potentially ignite a lot of the Bitcoin miners, the crypto miners, into tomorrow if it pushes enough. But they've been up and down. They've been so weird. Let's look at our riots and our Maras. So a riot we got, taking a look, it's actually kind of holding up quite well. It's got a nice consolidation right now on riot. Really nice, actually. I like it a lot. This is like a beauty. I mean, I wasn't paying attention, or I wasn't really interested in playing it right now personally. But it bottomed out here down to like $20 and it's held up in the low 20s and now it's at 25. You get a quick move, I think, up to like $30. Could get a nice gap up tomorrow to $30, and then we'll see if it goes, maybe 30, 33, 34 from there. Those are some first targets to watch based on some of these key levels we've been looking at in the past. So watching UVXY could have played. Yeah, what is SVXY? This thing, what did it hit? Did it hit 50 again? It pretty much did. Yeah, it did. It hit 50. So there you go. You had two opportunities. I sold it last week for a day trade, I believe on Thursday or Friday, because I just wanted to get out and free up some cash. But, again, the same idea applies, right? So the initial dip that I was looking at right when people were panic selling and everything was like, oh my gosh, right, was this. Now, okay, it dipped down to like 40, sub 44. I didn't get it that low. I got it at like 45, 46 the next day. But I rode it from 45, 46 up to 49 something. So it was like a 10% play. Then I also grabbed it again here, sub 46. This is actually a live trading on Wednesdays. We do live trading. So it was actually a live trading. I grabbed it in here, and then I think I sold it the next day or the same day, maybe for like, a nice day trade or something like that. But ended up the next couple of days, if I held on to it, or if you held on to it, you're back at $50. So just like that. It's one to watch. It's one to go. If you want to go long, the inverse of volatility. So essentially, you're betting on volatility to subside. Volatility comes down. So like the VIX, UVXY, you're betting on those to come down. And this is one that would go up when those come down. So it's a fun one. I think it's a fun one to play. I don't like playing. You can play options and stuff. I personally am not a big fan of the options with a lot of this lately, just because I personally am not I like the shares. I like being able to get in, get out in the pre-market and after hours. Just in case something happens, I want to be able to get out. Like worst case scenario, right? You're in a play, a volatility play, or a SPY or whatever, or like QQQ. You're in an option contract for a short-term swing. You have expiration by the end of the week. Now, of course, you don't have to get yourself into that situation in the first place, but maybe you're in that, you're playing for a scalp, and next thing you know, some horrible news comes out overnight, or some great news comes out overnight, and you were short, right? I just don't like, if I'm in that situation, I want to at least be able to get out first thing, or be able to get out when that happens, which would come in the after hours, and I can at least get out of my position. That's why I like the shares. So that's just it. That's just my take on the shares. But that's that. Mara is in a similar boat, I would imagine, to Riot. Let's pull up Mara, though. Yeah, similar consolidation, little kind of bottom right here in the low 20s. Now they're kind of paired up in a relatively similar price point. Mara, I think Riot's like $1 or $2 higher than Mara, but they're paired up in a relatively, similar price point, which is nice. You haven't be like, for some time they were like, $10, $20 off in terms of their price points, which was always interesting to me. But outside of that, let's go back to this. Let's go back to the daily top gainers. SPCE is one we got to talk about, because SPCE has been pushing up. They had a successful flight, so things are looking great. The only problem with SPCE, I will say, is that it's getting overextended, and it's like, okay, how high can it go before a pullback? So yeah, okay, relatively speaking, I think a target up to like $35, $36 is a pretty solid spot for a shorter term swing. I just definitely, you guys who know me, like Brian, no, I'm not buying up here. You'll probably get up to 36, I think, at some point, but I don't think you're going to see a straight up move. Maybe you do. Pretty big, because there's a lot of shorts there. At least were a lot of shorts in this stock. We can even pull that up too. There were quite a few shorts in SPCE. Let's pull that up. SPCE is 19% short, so that's still a significant amount. I think it was over 20% recently, so maybe some squeezed out, some got out. But you're getting back up to a prior area of consolidation from this 25 to 35 was an area that in the past we had a lot of kind of consolidation, a lot of kind of gaps and stuff. So you're getting up to like some significant resistance in my eyes, because a lot of volume has been traded in this range from 25 to 35. A lot of volume has been traded in that range. Now, once you start getting up over 35, things can get interesting pretty fast. 40, 45, 50, potentially fast. Especially if you have the news that we're getting right now. If more comes out, more drives it on up. But they're talking about how they're getting really, really close to having more like the average Joe flying to space. I'm sure it's going to cost a lot of money and stuff, but these test flights are it's cool. I swung this stock a while back. I had it, I want to say, from somewhere in the 20s, and I sold it up over like $50. Most of my shares, then I ended up selling the rest for break even as it like came crashing on down pretty fast in March. So that was what I did. I personally don't have any right now, but it's been a fun one to watch for sure lately. Flow. That's one of the things that I'm still thinking we're in that period right now is that DPW is a great example, I think, is that even though, right, you get these short-term pops, and DPW had earnings, I believe. We can pull that up just to see what generally, like really quick, what do we get on this? But there was a lot of people who were at DPW from a while back. So understand this. It's like one of the, I think, a really big, important, key is that if there's a lot of people in a stock that has gotten killed, there'll still be people holding that stock who are averaged down or are still in them. So they're going to be the ones that are going to be selling into these short-term pops. And that's going to be holding the price action back in the short term, I think. So quarter one revenue up of $13.2 million, up 136% from the prior year. Net income $2 million compared to a $6.5 million loss in the prior year's quarters. So they have some decent numbers. Revenue from cryptocurrency mining of $130,000 as the company resumed cryptocurrency mining operations. 1,000 miners. That's honestly nothing. I don't think that's very impressive, to be honest. I don't know. I know people were. It's funny. I looked into that stuff too, and I think it may be better time now as Bitcoin is pulled back. You have a little bit less demand for some of the equipment to mine your own crypto, but I don't think that's a very impressive number. I think that is kind of like a let's do it while it's hot type of thing. Get some attention. It's a nice press release, and it's kind of what the idea is behind that in my eyes. I don't think that's going to be a very big revenue producer. Maybe it's just a way to make a few extra bucks, but they're probably underwater from that investment, I would imagine, at least as of right now. Cash of $107.8 million. Okay, so $107.8 million in cash. Let's see what their market cap is on DP Dubs. What are they looking at? They got 116 million market cap. So you do the math, right? 116 million market cap. They pretty much have the same amount of cash as their market cap. Generally speaking, that's a pretty good deal. Just on a very raw, that's a good deal. Not what you'll have to look into more as okay, how has their past history been? How do they manage that cash? If they're going to go below that cash on a couple different things, and now they got no revenue to show from it, okay, that's terrible. That's not a good company. That's where you'll see a lot of companies trading below cash at times. And then eventually people are like, oh, hey, look at this company. They're below cash. Hey, they got a catalyst. Boom. Next thing you know, it's popping it up. So that's why I like these bottom plays a lot. But relatively speaking, DPW's probably got some more room. Who knows? Maybe we'll see up to like 350-ish, $3, 350. But the thing is, it's probably one that I'll leave on my list for a short idea tomorrow if it runs a lot. I don't want to short. I'm not going to short this thing under $3. Is how I would see it. But it's one that I'll put on my list because it's simply just there's a lot of people who are in DPW, I'm telling you right now, who were in this thing up here, up over 6, averaging down, and now they're like, oh my gosh. And they finally get a little pop. Maybe they got their average down to like $3, $4. It gets close to that point, they're gonna cut it out because they can't take it anymore. They're gonna get out. So that's what holds the price action back. Now, of course, if you get big enough news and enough volume and things like that, it doesn't really matter. But that's what it'll do. So let's see. We got DPW for tomorrow as an idea for a short potentially. We'll see if it gets over 350-ish or around this area right up in here, this 340 to 375 area. That would be a decent idea. And also, if I go short on the stock, right? It's a day trade, right? It's not going to be a short for like a long term. I'm not holding it long, but if it goes vertical and it goes immediately straight to like 350, you can take a pretty nice bet that you'll probably get a pullback from that 350 area down to wherever VWAP is at the time. And if VWAP is down towards like 325 or 310, you can probably get a nice pullback, a 10, 25 cent pullback, and there's your short, right? It's just a quick scalp and nothing crazy, but that's the idea. I was one of them in DPW at 4. 4 wasn't terrible. I was in it. I was in it back in here. I think I took some profits up here, roughly, and then I still had some. I was looking to buy more, and then eventually it fell off, and I cut it. I think I cut it under like 360-ish. Or this I got I got shafted at that point, right? Maybe I cut it down here under this 425 or 450 area. I forget exactly, but I cut it a while ago. But I remember I wrote up a little bit, and then I got rid of the rest. for a loss on the rest of those shares after taking some profits. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the nature of how it works. And the thing is, you got to think about, it's fine. If you take a loss, it's fine. Who cares, right? You can always, use that experience, right? So now use that experience to understand, okay, what did I do? Okay, last time I'm that bag holder of DPW, I average down, or I have an average at 4. I'm going to sell my shares if it gets close to my average just to get out. So now you can kind of understand that as this stock pushes up, if it gets up there, if it gets up to 3+, we'll say, you're going to have I think you're going to have significant selling pressure. Doesn't matter how good the news is. Doesn't matter how, the cash position, the earnings. If you get enough volume, sure, it'll go. But at some point, you're going to have the sellers are going to take over, I think. And the shorts will probably attack this one too because they know it's a cult stock. A lot of people are in this stock, or at least they were, and they're going to hammer it down. And they know that they can play off people's emotions. Okay, it starts selling off. It runs on up. It starts pulling back. Okay, I got to get out. I got to get out. And the shorts come in, they hammer it down. So that's that. There's understanding both sides is at least as of late. I will say I didn't really start day trading more until I really got a better grasp of both sides, and I never went short until like a few months back, other than like put options. But I started going short on like some penny stocks and stuff like that here and there, and now I got a much better grasp of like, okay, do I actually want to short this stock? Does it make sense to short or not? Where are the shorts going to look to go short here? Where are the longs looking to pick it up? And it's helped me a lot long, short. I mean, today I made more long trades than short trades. And I made, whatever it was. I think I was up on day trades. I was up like $460. But I made more longs than shorts. Last week, I think I made more shorts than longs overall. So it depends on the week. This week is seemingly we're getting better price action and volume. And then I'm also not sitting here just all day, just like I got to find something. It's not what I'm doing. I'm literally like, if I see something at the time and I'm paying attention that looks good, I'll take it. If I don't see anything, I'm not taking something. It's stupid because I've done that before where I shorted UONE before I even saw the 8K. I shorted this thing back in here at like 750 and the thing went to like 10 plus and I got like blasted. I ended up switching to long and then I took it long and after hours on the $10 break. So I made some money back, but you gotta be careful because it's easy to get burnt on the short side. If you look at UONE's chart and you're like, this has a history of making these spikes, I thought it'd pull back. It's pulling back now, but it has that prior range. It can make a run like that. So if DPW goes to 350, I'm selling as fast as I can. Is ONTX on your watch list? Recent? Yes. Let's take a look. I played this one last week. Oh, wow. It's right back down to this level. This is actually interesting. It's right back down to this point. So I would be curious. I don't know if I would like to take it right here because you got it looks like a 725, 730 area of support, 750 roughly. I would like to see it holding up here. Let's see though. If it doesn't, it could come down. It's got more room to come down. Although I think there's a lot of people who will also tell you the same thing. If I haven't done extensive due diligence onto ONTX, but for those who have, they think this is they think it's an underpriced stock. Is what I'll say. At some point in the future, a potential buyout or something along those lines, or something like that. And also, there's a recent price target out, $4. Some pretty high price targets in this guy. But that $4 also was when this was a sub $1 stock before the reverse split. Also take that into account. But it's come down. It's come down quite a bit off of that. So if you take a look, what's the percentage wise? It's come down off of that push. It's down 50+%. Jeez. That's why you don't want to hold through a reverse split. Although post split, it's a good time to start watching it. So yeah, could it be a good idea? Yes. But could it come down a lot more and make no sense valuation-wise potentially? Sure. That's why I would be a little bit cautious if it can't hold up here. But it has come straight down, so I would think a bounce is probably coming at some point. And you would think prior area of support could be the good setup for a bounce. So we'll see. Mosey's, CCL, Carnival Cruise, and those things are mixed. Let's take a look. Let's look at CCL. My concern with some of these guys is going to be that they were a good trade, right? The airlines, the cruise lines. Yeah, there's still lots of range up. This is one that honestly, I think, and we kind of knew this even months back, that if you grab this thing under $20, you are probably sitting back and saying, you know what? Let me just stash this away in like my IRA or my long-term account and just forget about it for like a year, right? And you're looking at it now like, hey, this is looking great. But you still have range up. My only concern is that you've made a pretty big move, right? You're up over 100% from the lows. Could it go up more? Yes. But you're up a good bit. It's holding up quite well. You got support around like $25 roughly. So you got a pretty decent support there. It's come down to this level a couple times. The only thing that I would be concerned about on CCL would be going forward, right? This stock, well, first off, this stock was in a downtrend prior to the pandemic. So if we connect this downtrend line roughly, you're actually probably going to be approaching that line up around $30 or so, roughly speaking. The gap before the pandemic drop is up to like 41, 42. So those are probably areas I'd be watching around 30 and then 42-ish. But is going to be how earnings play out going forward, because they're not going to be good. It depends upon expectations and whatnot, but it's not going to be good. And so my concern with a lot of the travel plays is that they've made decent rebounds off of their lows. And even though they've done that, what's going to happen, going forward? Are those earnings going to be good in the next couple of quarters? I don't know. I just don't think that they will. So I think that's going to be holding them back for sure. But also to a degree, everyone's forward looking, so that's also being factored in. So it's interesting. I don't know. I think that risk reward for me, I personally see other stuff that I see a little better, but I think they still got range back to the upside. For example, on Carnival. Let's take a look at Mosey's. MOSYS. Mosey. This is one that I think I've played before, but it had a pop up to over. Oh yeah, this is one that I played. I recently played as well. It has you got some tops up here over 6, but pulling back down. If this thing gets back down into this range down here, sub $4, I think under 4 is really good. So let it quiet out, and then boom. Look at them for calls. Yeah, I think that there's been. Even I'm curious to see actually too. On top of that, what are some other what are some airlines looking like? AAL. Look at that chart. That's a beautiful. You're almost back to where you were pre-pandemic, which is crazy on American Airlines. What is Delta's Dow? I just flew Delta yesterday. Packed, full plane. I mean, they're back to. I think starting in May, they went to no longer reserving that middle seat anymore, so it's just full plane now. Yeah, I mean, you're holding a pretty nice trend there on Delta. You're probably you're practically back up to where you were, and there's also the other factor too is that the post-pandemic boom, right? Is that everyone's like, okay, this summer I'm getting out, I'm going, I got vaccinated or whatever, and I'm out, or even if you don't care, I'm going, you're going whatever stuff's opening back up. I can go do this whatever I want to do now. So yeah. I think you're going to see that there's that factor too. I think airlines, I like airlines specifically over maybe cruise lines. Maybe, I don't know. I would say that is because you need to do it anyway. I think cruise lines, to a degree, there's less need on that front. Just kind of at least my 2 cents maybe. Delta is the main airline. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of consolidating right here under around 45. I think it's probably setting up for a nice move up to 50 plus. I think you can probably get an easy move to 50 plus, or even just $50. If you play calls on that, that's solid. That's a solid. Even if you buy, even just buying shares. I mean, it sounds stupid, but if you do the math on buying shares, you can go in much larger because there's not as much volatility unless we've seen another pandemic crash, on Delta. But if you grab shares from the current level up to $50, right? That's an 11% move, That's more than the average S&P return over the past 50 years in just potentially you can get that in a month, maybe less, So, there's a lot of options. That's why that's personally how I personally will do things. And there's also, I have a pretty strict, my mother is calling me. I was just visiting my parents. Actually, they moved into a new house. And so I went home to visit them and help essentially move them in, which was fine. It was nice. But that's where I was. But yeah, if you think about it, like as you have more experience and as you kind of get to a point, let's say you grow an account portfolio and you kind of put money in multiple places, you're not going to have the same risk management style as you progress, right? You have more experience, you know how to get out of it, you can make money or whatever, if that's the case. And so, yeah, I have a max. My number is 10% of my account in one stock at one time is the max I'll go, right? And eventually that could change. Like, for example, if I see Delta and I'm like, hey, I love Delta right now, and I had let's say my IRA, let's say, right now for my IRA, I got so much time and I'm not super concerned with like being safe on that front. I wouldn't be opposed to saying I'll take 50% of my IRA, Delta, take a 10% move, cut it out, trim it, move it to something else. Like something like that, right? So 10% is great, you do the math on that, compound that across, a couple plays a year. You do 50+% on your account across a year. I mean, you do the math on that. If you're consistent on that, that's awesome. But again, the stats and the numbers will tell you that that's not the case. 90% won't be there, And that's the other thing too. I'm seeing more and more stories from people's accountants and people saying, yeah, my accountant's like, yeah, this is crazy. Like, I've seen a few people like you who came into a lot of money, whether it's crypto, whether it's stocks the past year, whatever. And hey, like 1 out of 5, 1 out of 10 will keep that money. So just know that going in, be careful with what you're doing, right? That's just the number. That's just the stats, And hopefully, right? Hopefully we could be in a better spot than most. Hopefully, right? That's the intention behind, doing stuff like this, right? Going on vacation in 3 weeks. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I'm pumped to I'm pumped to get out and do more traveling. That's what I want to do. Going on like a trip next weekend to national park, but it's not flying, but I'm not opposed to flying anymore. SSYS and Zim. What do we got here? SSYS is bottoming off here. It's putting in a nice little trend. So we got a nice, it's putting in higher lows. It's up quite a bit. So let's see. We got resistance. You're going to have resistance up here around this 25 with the first level to watch. And then after that, you've got some range. I don't know enough about this one, but it looks like it's bottomed out and it's putting in those higher lows. And it's kind of really nice trend so far. But again, we'll see how this trend holds up. If this trend breaks, maybe if you grab it under $20, that would be a good spot, or around $20 could be a good entry, I think. CEI, I'm going to talk about CEI in actually a second because CEI is one that I like a lot. Zim, I haven't been paying attention to this one. I don't know much about it, but the volume has been solid as of late. Look at this volume; it's been pretty good, relatively speaking. Holding up, it's just a little overextended for me, unless I knew the fundamentals behind right. But diving into CEI oil plays, I like this. This is oh man, CEI. I'm telling you, just we'll see what happens. And hey, if I'm wrong, I'm not. That's why I have risk management in place, where I'm not going to go all in on CEI, right? But we got a 15 million market cap, 25 million float. Okay, so it's a pretty low float, relatively speaking. It's a cheap stock. That's a pretty low float for this price stock, right? Okay, this stock is bottoming out here. I'm looking for an oil pop. We look at crude oil. Let's look at crude oil. Let's pull up crude oil. Because we got to pull up crude oil right now and see what it's been doing. We'll look at the trend on crude oil. And let's pull up the daily on crude oil. Look at this. Crude oil is continuously, it's up there again. It's at this area of $65-$66. That's resistance right now on crude oil. But I think if we pop through and hit 70-75, I mean, the Oilers will go. And they are some of the craziest stocks to play. So you do not want to be buying CEI when it's spiking up to $1, right? Could you make money? Yes, but your risk reward and the percentage chance of you going green on that trade is a lot lower than snagging some here. What's your worst case scenario? Your worst case scenario, right? We get some bad news. We get this. We get that, right? So what's going on? Let's pull up CEI's news. They have an S3 or do they get some bad news? Let's pull up. That's your worst case scenario, right? On some of these stocks. So let's see. Receipt of notice from the New York Stock Exchange. This is the type of risk that you run, right? Here it is. Not in compliance with the continued listing standards set forth. Okay. Failed to timely file the 10K. That's not good. Filing of the report. The delinquency will be cured via filing the report. Previously filed a extension of the due date on May 6th. The report was unable to be filed timely due to delays in assembling the information by the auditor, blah, blah, blah. Further delay in filing 6-month period. Okay, so this is one of those things that happens in these stocks, right? Now they have the issue here because they have an acquisition with Viking Energy Group back in December. And so now you have the complications there in terms of filing their information. But again, this is a micro cap stock. So let me see. Of course, my mouse froze for a second. Let's see. If the company fails to cure the filing delinquency within the initial cure period, the exchange may, in the exchange's sole discretion, allow the company's securities to be traded for up to an additional 6-month period. Okay, depending on the company's specific circumstances. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, I want to see what happens with this. That's not good news, right? This is the type of stuff. But look at the 4-hour chart on CEI. Fell off quite a bit, hit 53 cents. I personally am going to probably buy some tomorrow. I think it's a 50-cent area. I'm going to probably buy some. You have support down to like 45 cents. Yeah, I think this is one of those plays that'll drop news at some point, or you run this risk. Of course, this is why you don't go in 20. You don't go in your entire account one stock. But I think oil still has a run, in store for sure. Even down here, I mean, if you look at the 4-hour on this thing, I think that risk reward is even better. So if you don't have a position in CEI, I mean, it's probably worth a shot. I think down here under 60 cents, yeah, under a 50. I mean, I think I said it before too last week or something. I was like, hey, if CEI hits 50-ish, I'll add another chunk, and that's what I'm gonna do tomorrow. That's what I'm gonna do tomorrow. I know it sucks, but I want to make sure I have cash available to add down low. And then I'll be looking to sell this thing. Ideally, my targets are up towards $1 is what I want to see in the future on CEI personally. That's at least my personal plan with CEI. Let's see. What else do we got going on? We got to look at let's look at some of the top losers in the after hours to see what we have in terms of that. ADMP, we had, I believe, what was the news on ADMP? They late quarterly filing notification. I think a similar thing to CEI. PTPI, this is because that was that pump I told you guys at the beginning. I shorted that one. CEI is up there. Ride, Lordstown Motors. We got some news out of them. Let's pull up Lordstown Motors. That's interesting to watch. That's a pretty big sell-off, right, for Lordstown Motors after that. Well, it has been up quite a bit as of late, so we understand that. PRs, what do we got? Today at 401. Oh, there you go. They announced their quarter one results. That's why they pulled back. That's what they pulled back. But look at Lordstown Motors. I mean, this thing went from bottom bounce under 7 to the 50 SMA, 10, 11 bucks, just like that, and now it's falling back off. But that would have been up. If I was in this thing, I'd be saying, hey, I'm not looking to be buying this thing at the 50 SMA area. I would like to see it break through and push us up, or it get rejected and buy a dip after that, personally. So let's see, what else do we have on the top losers? VIAO, top losers in the after hours. So we have, that's not much volume. Those are some of the biggest names, at least it seems like. Yeah. Auto is down. That's not much volume there. Mezzo. Yeah. So we covered pretty much the most higher volume. ADMP is one I think could be even worth a possible grab tomorrow. If you haven't done it, I played it in the past. I've gotten burned a couple times, but now you're looking at in the after hours down to like 52 cents, which puts you like down here. Your lows are down to like 37. Back post, I believe post PDUFA. That was bad news right there. Boom, fell down to 37. I got caught in that. I was in it back then. I got caught in that. Little did I know, if I had just held on to those shares and averaged down, I would have been mega green in a couple months, but in a couple weeks really. But that is what it is. So, all right, so let's take a look. I'll look at futures again really quick, and then we'll wrap things up. So right now, futures are looking, roughly kind of barely green, but nothing crazy. So we'll see how this plays out. We were looking at crude oil as well. Crude oil Look at the past look at the 5-minute chart holding up very nicely here over 65 right now. Crude oil is looking very strong. So we'll see how that plays out for a bunch of the oil plays. My oil play is CEI. Again, we have that bad news of them. We have the news of CEI really quick. Just really go back to this guy. Failing to file their quarterly report on time. Again, that's one of the risks that you run. Of course, this could be solved and then things are fine and this was a good dip, or this doesn't get solved and you run the risk of a delist at some point in the future. And of course, that's always a risk, but they have potentially up to additionally 6 months to continue trading. So many times, you can get a pretty good run in that period, right? So that's what at least I'm looking for, holding that one into June, roughly, unless oil stays very elevated, then I'll hold my oil plays a little bit further. NNOX is very undervalued. RSI, this is one that I've watched quite a bit. I think they got hit with a bunch of short seller reports as well, but it is low. That is low. NNOX NOX is low. It's down here, around $20 seems like a good risk reward RSI wise. I don't know enough about them company wise, but it seems like that. Let's see, a $24 call isn't too far out. No, it's not. That's not that bad. And that's the gap. The gap fill here, or roughly up here, the resistance is like 25 area. So I think you can get up to over 25. You got to push to $30 pretty quick if that goes well. It got hit with a lot of shorts. Yeah, I think there's a lot of. I think I've seen a bunch of short sellers hitting it. Crazy how this thing was up over 90 not too long ago. But all right, that said, I'm going to wrap things up. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Hope everyone is holding up, doing well this week. Hopefully we finish up pretty strong going forward the rest of this week. Market looks pretty strong as of right now, so we'll see if that continues going forward. I appreciate you guys for tuning on in, and I will see you in tomorrow's video.